There is something very fascinating about money. Some people can make millions and lose it. Some people can make millions, lose it, and remake it. And this tells us something very important about money, that it was never about the money. It is about the vessel, the person who creates the wealth. And in this episode, we're going to go into the mindsets behind creating a very wealthy life and how to attract and build your vessel to create more money than you currently have, to reach that next level of income and then that next level of income. Because wealth is all about your beliefs about wealth and your beliefs about money. And I want to teach you the mindsets and the practices that you can cultivate in order to attract more money into your life. So I've done one other episode on money, and this is basically taking it deeper into the teachings, the spirituality, the mindsets, the psychology behind creating money. So I hope that you absolutely love this episode. And if you're not familiar with me, I am Jenn. This is the Alignment with Jenn podcast, where I help women become the best possible versions of themselves. I want to start with a little story about George Foreman. So George Foreman is notorious for having made massive wealth and then completely lost it all and then remade it. And what I find so interesting about these stories, particularly George Foreman's, is that he had this experience where he got really, really successful. He made a ton of money through boxing. Then he lost it. Then at 45 years old, he became the heavyweight champion again, made money, but he didn't even make his fortune through boxing. He made it through the George Foreman grill. And what's so interesting about that is it wasn't the vehicle. It wasn't like that he was super, super good at boxing and he just did that again and made the money that way again. He made some of it, but he completely pivoted into an entirely different realm and made his money through that completely different realm. And for you, this is a really important thing to notice for all of us, because money isn't about, okay, I just need to find one way to make money. I actually think that creates a lot of scarcity and fear if we only know how to make money one way, like through a job, because then we're very dependent upon that job to make money, right? But when you learn the psychology and the energetics behind money, you are able to create it in many ways. Wealthy people see opportunities for wealth creation in absolutely everything. I will go to dinner with some of my friends who have done extremely well for themselves, and it's like the entire conversation, they're just like naturally noticing all of these ways to make money. Right. One of my friends was telling me he was at dinner with one of his mentors who is a billionaire. And this man has done so many businesses, success in every single industry. And they're sitting at dinner and he calls the owner of the restaurant over and he starts telling the restaurant owner, like, oh, this is what you should do basically with your business. He asks him all these questions. He gets an understanding, and the restaurant owner implements these changes. And they go back a couple months later and the guy is like, yeah, my profit margin is up, our revenue is up, all of these changes, right? This man, because he understands how to make money, he understands how money flows, he was able to advise this other person and create wealth for this other person. And that's what's really, really cool, is as you develop this understanding, I believe it creates such liberation, because you're never dependent on any one thing to help you make money, right? If tomorrow suddenly like all of my business was just kaput, I would know how to make money and I could be making a similar amount of money, if not more money, within a few weeks, right? Because it's a skill, it's a mindset, right? And so I want to help you understand what is the psychology behind that, so that way you can liberate yourself from fear and scarcity around money and bring yourself to that next level financially, because that next level is all about your consciousness. Part of it is going to be some skill or some strategy or some action that you have to take, but that will not work if your consciousness is not in the right place. It will be much more difficult. So you have to work on your consciousness, right? Your thoughts, your energetics before taking those actions. Most people think, and this is like level one, is that I need more money. When I have more money, then I will have, the peace that I want. Then I will have the experiences that I want. Then I will have the life that I want. But it's actually the reverse. We have to have the nervous system capacity. We have to have the thought processes. We have to think and be in a certain way before the money can flow, right? I've shared this metaphor before of the light and the vessel. So the vessel is your vessel. It's your capacity to hold the things that you want, your capacity to hold millions and billions of dollars. That is what has to grow, because in the field, in the quantum field, or we can call it the light, is always present. So there's always this ability to attract in money. The money is always available, right? The money is always there, but it's your ability to hold it that is going to change. And as you shift your thought processes and your understanding of money and how it flows, your vessel expands. But also as you shift your nervous system capacity. If you're constantly getting into fear and scarcity and gripping, someone told me the other day that someone was going to pay her for work that she had completed, and she felt this like knot in her stomach and she felt anxiety and she wanted to turn the money away. Energetically, like that's literally her body physically pushing the money away, right? And we do that on unconscious levels, right? I see whenever I go on Reddit, I don't like to go on Reddit. I feel like Reddit is like low vibe. Sometimes I'll go on there because I'll need some, like, I'll want to look at reviews or whatever. People are always talking about being scammed. They're so afraid of being scammed. If you're always afraid of being scammed, that is your own mindset, right? You're going to attract experiences that prove that to be true. Versus like a lot of the people that I know who do really well, they're not always afraid that they're going to be scammed, right? They know that sometimes investments they make will pan out, sometimes they won't. That's the nature of the game. Understanding that first, we must expand our vessel in order to receive more. The version of you that is making that next level of income that you want to make, she thinks differently. She shows up differently. Her nervous system responds differently to money. She believes different things about money. Right? And that can change rapidly. Those pieces must change in order for you to be able to hold and allow in that greater level of wealth. I want to get into the specific teachings around this. Okay, so the first one is taking money off of a pedestal. A lot of people have this relationship where they overvalue, I guess you could say, money. They make it this psychology and society of chasing money or needing to have money or feeling like happiness is tied to money, or I must reach this new level of success and this new level of wealth in order for me to feel like enough. And so there's a lot of energy and a lot of story wrapped up in money, when in reality, money itself is completely neutral. Completely neutral. It's an energy. Just like everything else, everything in the universe is 99.99999% empty space and energy. Same with money. When we put money on this pedestal and we make it above us, we make ourselves not equal to that experience. And people do this with certain amounts of money, right? There's certain amounts that you're like, I'm cool with that. For me, for years, it was like $150,000. For like when I was in my sales career, I thought getting above that, like I put that above amount, 200 or 300K on a pedestal. As soon as I took it off the pedestal and I was like, no, it's no different. It's not any different. It's just a little bit more money. I was able to reach those amounts of money, right? And so understanding what level of money are you putting on a pedestal and saying like, oh, I wish I could do that, or I want to reach that, and making it seem like it's so different, when in reality, it's no different. It's neutral. It's just more, right? It's more of the same of what you already have. And when you create this pedestaling effect, what happens is you create this energetic distance and you make yourself inferior to that amount of money. And so when you can bring it down and you can allow yourself to just be neutral about it, right? It is or it isn't. And that is easier said than done, right? Because we have these stories around money and we have these experiences growing up where our parents will say things about money, right? A lot of the scarcity around money comes from experiences and hearing things that went growing up or watching TV shows and just seeing how people interacted with money. And a big part of this piece is parsing out. A lot of people connect money to their worth. Like this whole phrase of charging your worth. I'm sorry, but that's literally impossible. There's no amount of money that is worth you, your energy, your time, right? You're charging not your worth, you're charging for a service, right? You're charging for something that you provide. So separating your worth from the amount of money that you make and stopping that connection, because what happens then is, okay, I must either work harder or I must become more or I must be different in some way in order to reach that new level of money, when in reality, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So I want you to think of money as a tool. That's all it is, right? If you have a hammer is a tool that gets a job done. The same thing with money. Money is a tool that gets a job done. And it creates a lot of opportunity in your life. It's an amazing, amazing thing, but it's still a tool, right? It's not a representation of your worth. It's not a representation of anything. It's fun to achieve higher levels of income, right? That allows you to have more experiences, that allows you to have more ease in your life typically, but it's a tool. That's all it is. And you've got to understand your own relationship with it. What stories are you ascribing to it? What are you believing about it that's creating this current dynamic? And what do you need to change in order to shift that dynamic so that way money flows in an easier way? I see this with like 99% of my clients, and it's this belief that I must struggle and work harder in order to achieve a new level of income. So this leads me to the second piece, understanding that money is made up. It is completely made up, right? Money began as a barter system. Way back in the day, people would trade goods and services, right? I would trade you some flour or like shells or something for your cow or whatever, right? We would trade what we needed. That was before money. And then what happened is we started to need money because it became more and more difficult as society became more complex to always just be trading things, right? And that's when money came in. It's literally made up. Somebody made it up. And so the beliefs, the stories around money are also made up. What you believe about money is literally just what you've continuously heard and been repeating about money. But I guarantee the people who who do extremely well with money, or the people that you can see in the media, they have different beliefs and stories about money, right? One of the biggest ones I see is that you have to work harder in order to make more money, right? And this comes from that 9 to 5 mindset of, okay, I get paid for a certain amount of hours. So if I'm going to make more money, then I have to work more hours. That is completely false, right? Jeff Bezos is not working the most hours out of anyone in the world to make his billions. It's just completely false. If you can look for examples all over the place, it's not true. But that becomes ingrained, right? And that's a story that is also made up. So what stories about money are you making up and then applying to money? Start to ask yourself these questions. The reason that this is important, and this might be the most important thing I say in this episode, is money is made up and our stories about it are made up. And typically it's not the actual money that we want, right? The actual money isn't that exciting. It's what we believe that money will give us. It's going to give me more time with my children. It's going to give me more flexibility. It's going to give me the ability to pursue my purpose, to travel more, to see the world, to buy beautiful clothing. It's what we believe the money will give us. So a really good starting point for you is understanding, what is that I actually want, right? What's the feeling that I'm actually seeking from money? And then in order to become a vibrational match for it, how can you start to live in that frequency more and more? So if it's freedom that you want and you're feeling really confined by your work, then how can you begin to cultivate more freedom? Because freedom starts in the mind. Freedom is in the mind. You can be completely free and feel completely shackled if your mind is not free, if you do not believe in your ability to be free. So ask yourself, okay, I want this amount of income. Why do I want that? I want it so I can buy more beautiful clothes. Why do you want more beautiful clothes? Because I want to feel more beautiful. What will feeling more beautiful give you? Keep asking yourself that. Take yourself down that rabbit hole to really understand what's the driving force behind why you want more money. Because when you understand that, you can begin to match that frequency, right? You can begin to cultivate more experiences in your life to create that frequency and expand your ability to match that and attract that in. Another thing to notice is that a lot of the things we believe about money are just basically agreements that we've made with the world around us. They're things that we have picked up from stories, from psychology, right, from the media, from family relationships, from our own careers, things like that. And so understanding what these agreements are is very, very helpful for you to start to shift your money story. So I want to share the most common ones that I hear in my work, working and coaching women, because I hear a lot of them. So one of them, and the biggest one, as I mentioned, is money is hard to make, right? It's this belief that it's difficult to make money. When I changed this, because I used to believe that, kind of, when I changed it to believing that money just flows easily and effortlessly, and I did this through the subconscious rewiring work that I teach, I changed it at that deeper level of the mind, because you can say these things to yourself, right? You can affirm them, but you can feel that disconnect if you really don't believe it. That disconnect is because we need it to be unconscious, part of that subconscious mind. And that's that deeper part of our mind that's really running the show. And so that's what I help people with in my coaching programs. And if you want help with that, rewiring those deeper beliefs, you can message me the word podcast on Instagram, and I'll send you a 5-minute video about my community, my program, where I help you with that. So that's one. Money is hard to make. Money leaves as soon as it comes. A lot of people will tell me like, yeah, I'll make all this money, but then a bill will come or an unknown expense will come, right? That's a belief you have that you are literally rolling out the red carpet of your life to manifest that belief. That's how powerful you are. And that's how powerful it is to change your beliefs, because your reality will literally change to meet you there. I have to struggle to deserve it. This was one that I had for such a long time, and I had to really work to release it. It was like, if I didn't have to work too hard for something, it couldn't happen. I had to work a certain amount of hard in order to receive it. I wonder if that resonates with you. Let me know in the comments. People like me do not make that much. If your family hasn't made that much money, this is a common belief. It's not safe to receive more. So there's this fear of the increase in responsibility, or that maybe people will try to take things from you, or you'll lose people you care about if you make more money. I really encourage you to dig into your own beliefs around money. And I have a mini program. I'll link it in the show notes. It's called Everything I Touch Turns to Gold. And I go way deeper into these money concepts. And that's like a little mini program I offer. If I charge more, people will judge me. And also if I make more, if I become too successful, people will judge me, right? It's all these unconscious fears we operate off of, and they influence even our most subtle actions. If I have more, I will lose connection. If I become wealthy, I will become selfish. I find this belief to be true for a lot of my clients that were raised in religious faiths. So Christianity or Catholicism, there's a Bible verse that's love of money is the root of all evil. And so that can become internalized as this belief that if I love money and if I want money, then I am evil, right? And if you're a good person, that's going to cause you to unconsciously repel money. But the reality is that money is neutral. The person who has the money is who determines if the money does good or bad in the world, right? I look at Tony Robbins. He's a billionaire now, probably a multi-billionaire, and he has done so much good. He's fed over 1 billion meals to hungry people. He's constantly making donations, doing so much good, right? He's able to have that level of impact because he has money. Somebody with not as much money as him couldn't have that same kind of impact that he has, right? But then you have people who have money and they use it to create products that harm people, right? That's a different breed. And so you, as a good person, right? I believe the people who listen to this podcast are good people, are going to do good with money, right? And so understanding how these beliefs are operating with it. Another one is I am bad with money. This happens a lot if you are not good with your money, right? If you are overspending, or you don't know how much money you have, or if you're never budgeting and creating consistency and creating a safe container for your money. And so what happens unconsciously is your unconscious mind looks at that and sees and is like, oh, she's not really managing this well. It's creating this low level of stress and chaos. So we don't want more because that'll just get to be more, right? So a big part of these beliefs is also how you are showing up with your own money. Are you spending your money in ways that vote for what you want? Something my brother said to me when I was little, and I was like, dang, this was really wise. He must have been like 13 when he said this to me. He's like, every dollar you spend is a vote for what you want. And so he's like, don't vote on things you don't want. And I was like, what? Mic drop, 13-year-old Danny. But it's true. It's the same with every minute you have in the day. It's a vote for what you want, the kind of life that you want. Same with how you are distributing your money. So look and understand, am I spending my money on things that don't make me feel good, like McDonald's? Like, I'm not a big McDonald's person, right? Maybe some people it makes them feel good. But notice, what am I spending my money on? Number 3 is understanding that value is subjective. This is important when you are negotiating how much money you're going to make. So whether it's at a job or whether it is in your own business with your own prices. I give this example in one of my courses where I show like a Louis Vuitton bag, and then I show this brown leather bag. And I say, okay, which of these bags do you think is more expensive? And most people will say the Louis Vuitton bag because they know about Louis Vuitton, right? Typically they're a few $1,000s worth of a bag. And then I tell them about the story of how the bags are made. So the Louis Vuitton bag is made in a factory. It's very simply made. It's made with relatively cheap materials. There's not much time or energy that goes into making this bag. It's mass produced. So that individual bag, okay, then I tell them about this other bag. And I was like, this other bag is from a leather smith in Italy, and he only makes a certain amount of these bags every single year. And he puts all of this time and effort. His family has been making these bags for hundreds of years. He goes and sources the leather specially, this whole story, right, about this bag. And then I say, okay, which of these bags do you think is actually worth more? And then they're like, oh my gosh, like the leather smithing bag. And then I say, okay, tell me how much you think these are priced. And they're like, okay, probably a few thousand for the Louis Vuitton bag. And I really don't know, maybe a few thousand for the leather smithing bag. I don't even know if leather smithing is a word, but you know what I mean. But the leather smithing bag is he sells it for $150 and Louis Vuitton sells it for $3,000. Value is subjective. It is assigned, and typically it's assigned through the marketing and the sales of that product. And so understanding for yourself, what value am I assigning to myself? And this gets really deep. It's not just about money. It's about how we're treated. It's about how we spend our time and energy and how we take care of ourselves. But what value am I assigning to myself and the work that I am producing? And if I'm undervaluing myself, I'm always going to under-earn. It's just inextricable. And even if you're earning well, you could be earning more the more you value yourself, because that will be reflected back to you. And I think this is really common in how a lot of women will do the same jobs as men and they'll make less money, right? And they say the same thing is true about women won't negotiate as much. And I have a lot of clients who they'll say they want to make more money, and I'll be like, okay, have you asked for a raise? No, like I couldn't ask for a raise. A lot of them will tell me that. Why? Oh, I don't know. Like it's uncomfortable. I don't want to ask for that. That's part of this whole thing of really valuing yourself and expecting a certain amount, and that will be reflected back to you. An analogy I love to use, this is the 4th piece, is that money behaves like electricity. And if you even think about the words that we use as a society to describe money, we use banks. Electricity is also held in a bank. Currency, right? Like a current. Charge, like an electrical charge, but a charge on your credit card. Revenue stream, income stream, right? These are all references to electricity, water, to flow of something, circulation, cash flow. And so understanding that there is this flow, there is this current, and there's this way in which money flows like electricity, or you could even think of it as water. And I always think of, in order to make more money, you want to become a more powerful conductor of energy. Just like certain metals are really powerful conductors of electricity, and some of them are not. right? And so you're going to have a really great lamp if you use the right materials in order to conduct that. And you're going to have a really poor lamp if you use the wrong materials. The same is true for you. You want to be a powerful conductor of money. And so how do you become a powerful conductor of money? I want to walk you through basically like this 3-part system. And I go way deeper into this into my programs, but I want to give it to you so you have it. And it's really this 3-part framework of how to become that better conductor. So at the bottom level, we have the roots. So I'm going to use a little garden metaphor. We have the roots. The roots of your relationship and your experience with money are your subconscious beliefs and your nervous system patterns around money. The roots affect everything, right? You can't have a solid, healthy oak tree if you don't have an extensive, powerful root system. And as soon as that root system starts to die, that entire tree begins to die. Same with when your beliefs around money suck, your whole money tree is going to struggle to grow. Some of the things that you want to think about: do I feel safe receiving more money? How do I actually feel when I think about making an extra X amount every single year? Do I feel safe being seen? Being seen is a big part of creating more money. Do I feel safe charging more? Do I feel safe holding more? How do I feel about investing? How do I feel about charging for my services? How do I feel about checking my bank account? Noticing all of these behaviors that you have around money. And do I tip people well? What are your relationships with money? Notice that, because underneath there's your beliefs about money. And if you're not where you want to be financially, there's things in there that are not serving you. And as you change those, the entire tree strengthens and can grow much taller. So that's the first piece. Then the second piece are the nutrients. So the nutrients that feed the trees, right? The nutrients in the soil. And those are your conscious beliefs about money. So our subconscious mind is 95%, controls 95% of our reality. I really think it's more. I think it's like 99, but that's what research has shown is 95%. Your subconscious mind is really running the show, but consciously, what we are aware of, so the thoughts that we are aware of, that's our conscious mind. So the nutrients are, what am I consciously telling myself about money, right? Am I repeating to myself, money is a struggle, I'm never going to have the kind of money that I want, right? Or am I saying money is a renewable resource? Money is abundant. Money is a current. I am my greatest asset. Every time I pour into myself, I make more money. Money loves me. I am an excellent steward of money, right? What are you consciously telling yourself about money? Then we have the gardener who takes care of the tree. And that is your aligned behaviors. So how am I showing up around money? How am I taking care of my money? Am I a good steward of money? Because your subconscious mind, that root system, is always observing your behaviors. And so if you are not showing up well, if you're like, I believe I'm a money magnet, and you tell yourself that all day, but you also are constantly overspending, or you're constantly never, tipping people and not wanting to, split the bill with your friends and being like cheap with money, that's a strong disconnect. So understanding those aligned behaviors. Are you really taking care of your money? A lot of my clients will tell me like, I really don't like checking my bank account. It really stresses me out, so I don't do it. That's not being a loving steward of money. So understanding that, how are you saving your money? How are you investing your money? Do you have a healthy money machine that you've created for yourself, right? Really treating it like a relationship. That is where I want to leave it with this episode. I have so much more to say, right? We could speak about money for literally months and months on end. What I want you to do is I want you to start really just noticing your behaviors and reflecting on your relationship with money. And if you want to change this relationship, I highly recommend reaching out to me and learning more about my community, where I help you rewire these deeper beliefs around money. And I teach you how to manifest more in your life, how to become that strong conductor of money and creating in your life. So if you want to learn about that, send me the word podcast on Instagram and I will send you a 5-minute video about that. All right. See you in the next episode.